Good. Good, good. Can you all hear me okay and understand me?
Yeah, yes.
Lovely. Excellent.
Yes.
What?
It helps you very much.
Yeah, all good. I look forward to it. I'm Bruce Smart, TeapotOne, and I'll chat to you about my trip I did from 2012 to 2014 around the world on a J6R 1000. Not seen her, what's left of her is out in the tent through there, so if you get a chance, have a look. You can see that. What I'll cover is who I am, why I did it, what I did, and then a little bit on preparation, kit, and the elusive sponsorship. Then about the trip itself, and a wee bit at the end about lessons learned. I'm aiming to try and batter through it in about 35-40 minutes if I can, and that'll leave time for the questions at the end, because folk have always got questions. So I will try and fly right through it. If I'm going too quick, let me know, alright? But we'll have time at the end to chat about it. So, that's me on the right, in case you haven't seen. That's before I decided I was going to do it. That's what sort of stage in life I was at. In my early 30s, to be honest with you, I had no idea what I was doing, what I was going to do when I grew up. A bit lost, to be honest with you. I was working full time, I still am. Those that don't know, don't hate me, but I'm a copper in London. Relationship, there's a question mark next to it, because at the time, I wasn't in one. Stay single, stay strong. Shut your ears, they were all snakes with tits. I wasn't interested in settling down in the slightest. That changed not long after I decided I was going to do the trip, so that has a bearing when you're planning it and when you're away as well. I'm a father. My son was about 11 at the time that I decided I was going. He was going to turn 16 while I was away on the trip, so again, that's got an impact when you decide to do something like this. But as it says there, I was bored. Really, really bored. So, why? That's my mum. She fought cancer for about 10 years almost. She had the 5-year all clear, so my folks decided, oh great, we're going to move to the sun, enjoy ourselves. So that's what they did. Unfortunately, her cancer came back, so every time it came back, she'd have to come back to the UK. She got treated at the Royal Marsden in London, so she wanted to go back there. They got her through it once before, so she was safe there. She thought, I want to go there. So every time she'd come back, she'd have to stay in relatives' floors, B&Bs, that sort of stuff. The last time it came back, I had a flat, so I said, come and live with me, You're not going in a B&B, live with me. So as she was going through the treatment, it was pretty evident she wasn't responding to the treatment. So she's getting more and more unwell. And we'd spend a lot of time just chatting, really, a good time with her just to chat about things. And one day, we're on the couch, and Long Way Round came on the TV. And I'd seen it all before. My folks had bought me the box set when it all came out. And I started moaning, like everybody does, It's all right for them, all the money in the world, celeb, all that sponsorship, blah, 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 blah. And my mum turned around to me and she said, you've always spoke about riding a motorbike, and you've never done it. I didn't ride a bike at that point. You've always spoken about travel. You've never done it. I went from school to uni into work, and then work straight into the old bill. Never done the travel thing. So she said, don't get to my stage in life where you face the end and you regret what you've not done. As far as we know, you get one shot at this. Look after those that you love, but live your life. Those 3 words changed my life, there and then. So there and then, I went online and I booked my direct access. By the time I did the direct access, Mum had elected to go to a local end-of-life hospice because she didn't want to pass away in my flat. So I went straight to P&H in Crawley, where I bought my brand new J6R 600. That was waiting for me that day. Got into my black leather Power Ranger outfit, and I rode all the way to the hospice, wandered in, shipped the keys at her and said, I've done it, passed my test. She gave me the hug only mums can give, and she said, promise me you'll do that trip. So that was it. I was doing the trip. Like everyone else, I thought, I'll do it when I retire. I can't do it now. I've got a kid, I've got a flat, I've got a job, can't do it. A couple of things happened at work that changed my mind. So I ended up thinking, bugger it, I'm going to do it, let's go. And that leads into the preparation and everything that I'll just cover now. Over sort of 3.5 years of planning and preparation, I initially started just with St Christopher's. I wanted to raise a little bit of money for them for what they'd done for me and my family. I ended up picking another 4 charities as well, so I ended up trying to raise a bit of money and profile for 5 charities on the trip. Today I think I've raised about 11.5 grand for them. It's not a huge amount, it's nowhere near the money that I was hoping to raise, but it's 11.5 grand, it's better than a kick in the dangles. And every book, and if I ever get the DVD done, Every book and DVD that I sell, the money goes to. So that was a friend of mine, Woody, helping. So I spent about 3.5 years trying to build up a following, a social media following, basically, get people interested in the trip. And I was really trying to get that corporate sponsorship deal, because how the hell am I going to afford it, you know? How do you pay for something like this? So I spent ages approaching thousands of companies, trying to get them on board, put the logo on the bike for a bit of cash, blah, 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 blah. I went to like the opening of a curtain, I'd be there with the bike, no problem, I'll do it. So events all around the country doing stuff. Visas, I hadn't a clue, so I just thought, I don't know what I'm doing with that. I used a company called Travcore in London, and they did all the African ones and the Russian visa for me. They're the main headache, so I let them deal with it. Costs you a bit of wedge, but it sorts all the grief out. Meds, I literally turned up at my doctor with a map of the world and said, I'm going there for 2 years, what do I need? And they rubbed their hands together, put the credit card machine out and said, bend over. So that was that. It's about 600-700 quid for all the meds, so you've got to factor that in as well. Backers, well, as I said, I tried everything to try and get backers. It eventually led to this. That's what it looked like and what I looked like before we did the trip. I think we're both a little bit weathered now. As you can see, the bike looks great, it looks fantastic like that. All the logos and everything are all over it. It looks like, you know, I've been back to the hilt. Companies are very eager to give you kit. You know, like Garmin gave me the sat nav and all the maps. Bridgestone were supposed to supply all the tyres, didn't quite work out like that. R&G gave me crash protection, Shoei gave me a lead, all stuff like that. But to actually get coin out the companies, it's hard work. Reese Laurie, is he here? Reese is here anyway, and he's given a talk on filming and sponsorship. He's a good lad to talk to. He's the guy that rode the Triumph around the world a couple of years ago. Tomorrow Rider, he's known as. You might see him. I don't know. But anyway, he's a good lad to speak to. So that is me literally about 3 days before I headed off, and I left 1st of October 2012. 1st of October was my mum's birthday, so that was the date in my mind. I'll go on that. 2012, well, in 2008, 2012 was 4 years ago, so I didn't need to worry about going. It came round bloody quick. So anyway, that was me leaving. This should be a video, it doesn't quite work unfortunately, but if you imagine that with a red line all around here, right around Africa, through the Middle East, right across Russia, all the way down here, through India, all the way down there, New Zealand, across, all the way up here. That's pretty much my route, the world. It was going to be 100,000 miles, 80 odd countries I was planning on doing. Again, it didn't quite work like that. But anyway, I headed off, left London, had a big motorcycle escort all the way down to Dover, get to Dover and I dropped the bike on the ferry, literally, as I got on the ferry. Right. So into Europe, right around mainland Europe, and eventually down to Algeciras in southern Spain, get the ferry across into Morocco, and that's where the real adventure starts. Morocco's awesome. Just come back from there actually about a month ago. So it's down through Morocco, great place, getting a lot of bad press at the moment, but most people are fantastic over there. You get the opportunity, go. Great. That's Ait Ben Khadou. It's famous. Part of the old ancient caravan route. You know, the spice trades used to use it to and from like the Far East and right across. That's used by Gladiator. Gladiator was filmed there. Game of Thrones, all this sort of stuff. They all use it for sets. Great place. So I thought, right, I want to go there. In the desert in November, it gets about 5:30 and it's like someone switches the light out. It just gets dark really quick. So I'm heading off out into the Sahara. Never done any of that before. And the sun's coming down. I'm thinking, God, I don't know where I am here, but I need to find somewhere to sleep. Saw this open bit of land with a wee shed. That'll do. Pitched my tent up, went to sleep. Great night's sleep in the desert. If you ever get the opportunity, do it. It's awesome. Woke up in the morning. Nature's taking its course. I need a pee, so I get out the tent, go around the back of the shed, have a pee, and that is the view I see. I'd literally camped next to it, more or less. So I was getting all my pictures, packed all my kit up. Starting to get a wee bit of B-roll footage because I YouTubed the whole trip. It's all there if you want to. If you go on TeapotOne Vids, subscribe. If you go on there, you'll see the whole trip. 17 odd episodes covering everything. So I was getting all this B-roll footage, and the tourist buses start turning up. I'd slept in the car park. So these coaches start turning up, and about 60 Japanese tourists just poured off these coaches. And you know what they're like, they're straight out with the cameras, want to take pictures. But not of that. They wanted pictures of the Suzuki GSX-R from the homeland, so you know that was the main event. They were just taking pictures of this and doing all that next to me in the bike. Tour guides weren't very happy. But anyway, it says there, into Mauritania. If anyone's been following the trip, you know what happened in Mauritania. I'll not go into too much detail, but that sums up my experience. It was shit. This is all I can say. It was bad. I timed it at a really bad time. The Islamic fundamentalist group, Boko Haram, the ones that kidnapped all the Nigerian schoolgirls, they were exploding out of Africa at that point, unfortunately. They'd taken over Mali, Timbuktu, and then they were coming across into Mauritania, just as I was heading in. So they flooded Mauritania with police. There was checkpoints, literally, like every 100 metres, to try and combat all this. Unfortunately, the local old Bill took that as a way of lining their pocket, basically. So I was getting robbed about easy a dozen times a day, generally at gunpoint, but it was just money they were taking. They weren't taking any tips, just money. So I was hemorrhaging funds as I went down through Mauritania. I ended up snapping the subframe on the bike. Just the road stopped as I went flying over it about 90 mile an hour, and I dropped about 4 feet, and it just snapped the subframe. Yeah, local help, and then Rosso. If you've never heard of Rosso, Rosso is notorious as the most corrupt border in Africa, which is going some really, because they're fun in some borders. But yeah, Rosso lived up to its reputation. I had a really bad time. It's covered in the book. It's covered on the videos on YouTube. It was horrendous. Luckily, I ended up meeting this chap, 65-year-old South African guy called Robert. He was just going through a divorce. He'd lived in Scotland for 25, 30 years, down the road from where I grew up, believe it or not. And he decided he was going to ride to Cape Town, go back to his homeland. Basically, through Facebook, he'd rekindled his childhood romance, and he was going to head to South Africa to meet her. So he'd heard Mauritania was a little bit tasty. We met at the border and decided, well, buddy up and see how it goes. So the idea we'd head all the way down through Africa together if it went well. So by the time we got through, we were both a little bit fried, to be honest with you. I don't want to put anybody off because people have been to Mauritania before, they've been since, not had any issues at all. But I experienced the worst time there. It was horrendous. So we were a bit up in the head, to be honest, by that point. So we took about 10 days R&R, just in this hotel, try and get our heads together, decide what we were going to do. By that point, I had enough money to get to South Africa, but pretty much that would be me skint by then. So I thought, well, what can I do? What do I do if I get to Cape Town and I've got no money left? What happens? So I made the decision I would head back to the UK and then try and regroup, hopefully get a bit of cash together, and then I could go again, try and keep the dream alive. Hardest decision I ever made, because I headed back home. Robert carried on. He got down to Congo, but couldn't get any further, so he shipped the rest of the way. But I ended up back in London, broken, to be honest with you. I'd spent 3.5, almost 4 years planning this trip. Everybody knew about it. There's like 4,000 people following on Facebook by that point. All my friends and family, were behind me. Everybody at work was behind me, and I came back 7 weeks after I left, like that. I didn't do it, failed it. So I was back home, not in a good place. I happened to meet this guy called Martin McDonald, who just appeared out the blue, came up to me and said, look, I've been following your trip on YouTube, and I was writing for Fast Bikes magazine as well. He said, look, I own this, or part own this oil company. He said, it's our 25th anniversary next year. We're looking for a PR vehicle. He said, we were going to approach you with a sponsorship. So what's your plans? And at that point, I didn't know what I was doing. I had a missus. I'd just come back, and my missus was thinking that was me home, and she's picking curtains for our new house and all this sort of stuff, So I was like, Christ, I don't know what I'm going to do here. Give me a little bit of space to think about what I'm going to do. So I took a couple of months, a night duty. January, it's like -10. I'm standing on some door in London, bored out my skull, thinking, what am I doing here? So I got my phone out and I emailed him there and then. Thankfully, he was in the States on the piss with the actual guy that owns the company, because they were buying an office over in the States. So he said, look, I've spoken with the gaffer. He's had a few sherbets, but he's quite interested. Come and meet us. So I did. A couple of months went by. I went up north, met them, and literally they put this deal on the table, which was about half of what I needed financially to go. I'm amazed that people don't get offered that. And they came out the blue. So obviously I bit his hand off. I'll do it. 3 weeks later, I left, 8th of May 2013. So that's me leaving the Cenotaph again. This time, no fanfare. It was me, Martin, the son-in-law. That was it. Off we went. So I went right round the UK. New route, missed out Africa, missed out the Middle East, because it was kicking off everywhere. Egypt was going off, Syria was going off. Everywhere just looked horrendous, and I thought, I've got to do this trip. I'll do right round the world. If it's calmed down by the time I finish, I'll go and do Africa, I'll go and do the Middle East, get that done. It's not calmed down, so I've not done it yet. But anyway, I headed off. This time, I'd already done Europe, so I went up into Scandinavia, into Norway, and that's where the love affair with Norway began. If you've never been, Norway is spectacular. It's expensive, but my God, what a place. It really is phenomenal. They're not very keen on speeding, that's the only issue, so you have to watch there. But, I mean, look at the views you get. Stunning place. And the people. That was my introduction to the sort of overlanding spirit. And you hear these stories off of everyone that's been away and done these trips, you know, like the friendship, the openness, the warmth that you see from total strangers, and it's 100% true, except in Mauritania, but it's 100% true. Norway, amazing. The biking community over there, there were just people getting in touch left, right and centre, inviting me into their homes. You've never met them, Facebook, just come and stay with me. They'll just go and meet people all over the shop. That guy is the caretaker of the Arctic Circle Raceway. I didn't even know there was an Arctic Circle Raceway. So somebody in Oslo said, my missus's mate is the caretaker. Here's his number, get in touch with him. So I got in touch with him and he said, yeah, come meet me at the gate on such and such a date. Get it. You can get in and you can do a few laps of this track. Happy days, said I. So literally turned up, he opened the padlock, swept the reindeer shit off the circuit because it was just winter, literally the snow had just melted. And off I went. Hopefully this will play. There we go. I've got to show you this. That's loaded up, that's everything I took on the trip. Knee down in the Arctic Circle. So that had to be done. If you ever get there, that circuit is awesome. Like Rootsy's there, it used to be at Fastway. Have you done that? Have you done the Arctic Circle? Oh, it's mega, man. It's what a circuit. A lot of fun. So yeah, then I headed up to Nordkapp, which is still like 2,500 miles north. At that point of the circuit, I'm already way above Iceland, and you've got to keep going another couple of thousand miles. It's huge, Norway. So I went up there to get that picture, and then it's south. Went down through Finland, Estonia to go and see where Joey Dunlop lost his life. Down through Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Slovakia, then into Hungary. And that's a non-existent border crossing the GPS was sending me to. So sat-nav's great, but it's not always right. And then from there, I crossed into Romania, Trans-Garrison Highway, got to be done. Just what a road, awesome. The road quality's not great, but the views are phenomenal. If you're really bored, if you go on my YouTube channel, TeapotOne Vids, subscribe. If you go on there, there's an hour and a half on-board footage of it. If you're that bored, you can see the whole thing. Met this chap, John. Again, this was another introduction to, what real people are like. Don't trust anything you read in the papers or you see on the news about what folk are like. Romanians, my experience of Romanians, pickpockets, scumbags all around London, con artists doing all the cash machines. That's just a tiny little slice, You go to Romania, meet real Romanians, and they're really friendly, welcoming people. This guy heard the bike screaming around the Trans-Garrison. He loved motorbikes. He was right into MotoGP. He came down and flagged me down and said, "Oh, you've got to come up, please have a cup of tea with me." So I went up to this place. I thought he was the caretaker the way he was dressed. Turns out he owns it. He took me up. He asked if he could wash the bike because it was in a right state. So he washed the bike, I washed it with him, and then he said, "Oh, can I have a picture? Can I have a picture on the bike? I need to put on my chef whites." It turns out he was the chef, and he was the owner, and he was the cleaner. He did everything. A bit like Manuel. But anyway, so that's him jumping on the bike, and then he introduced me to the local moonshine, and the rest of the night's a little bit hazy, to be honest with you. So from Romania, I head into Ukraine, into Moldova by mistake, so came back into Ukraine, then up into Russia. I headed to Moscow. Again, Moscow's phenomenal. Just get there and get to Russia if you can. What a place. There I met this chap, Ali Albetkov, again through social media. He invited me to stay with him for a couple of days. Turns out I was there for like 8 days in the end. They're very social Russians. He introduced me to this chap, Vladimir. Where is he? Hopefully he'll be coming in a second. There we go. This chap. He's the editor of the biggest bike mag in Russia, and he's ridden across Russia umpteen times. He thought I was a maniac to do it on the Jigsaw, so he wanted to meet me, try and talk me out of it, but help if he could. So he's telling me about routes. I don't know why, because there is one road. And he was trying to give me points of contact the entire way across Russia. Literally, I was just going to be like, my hand would be held all the way across Russia. I didn't want that, but you can't turn down the offer. So we had a good afternoon chatting there. which did lead into an evening on the beer, and beer focused a lot in my trip. That is Russian roads, 1,058 miles to the next turning. And the roads, honestly, that's what it's like. And the roads are like that. It's literally about, sorry?
You can't get lost then.
No, honestly, yeah. If you stick to the main road, if you're heading east or west, there's one road, and you just follow it. That's it. So you keep going, quite pretty featureless. Sometimes they haven't finished the road yet, and there's a few stretches where, when I did it, there was no road. But it's doable, you know. I could do it on the jigsaw, you do it on that. That's your main issue, trying to navigate. But as I said, there's one road really till you get there, and then that road to the right, that heads north to Magadan. So you can kind of make out that's Magadan. And I knew I was heading to Vladivostok, and that had a K at the end of it, so that'll do me, I'll keep going. As Ian Coates says, you know, if the sun rises in the east, sets in the west. Yeah, if you're heading east, just keep going towards the sun until lunchtime, and then hope if it starts setting behind you, you're heading east. It's as simple as that. These are mad Russian bikers. They were racing from St. Petersburg all the way to Vladivostok, 10,000 kilometers in 10 days. That's the race that they were doing. I came across the guys in the lead, and we started having a bit of fun, to be honest. And unfortunately, I didn't see this massive hole in the road. Hit the hole, snapped the subframe again for the second time. They said, don't worry, we're pulling up our backup truck. So this truck turned up. It took 5 hours. Driven by that chap on the right there. What's the pirate? His name is Gennady Filosov-Shatov. That's his real name. Should you know, that's his real name. He's the first Russian to ride solo around the world. What the stories that bloke had was unreal. He was like a hero around that place. People knew him from everywhere. He took me to Novosibirsk, right in the centre of Russia, introduced me to that couple, and ended up living with them for 5 days. I'd never met them from Adam, but he just, you know, literally talked to them in Russian, and he left with my bike and left me with these people. And that was it. They took me home, and I lived with them for 5 days, whilst my bike was fixed, and then they took me to my bike, and that was it, fixed. So I hit the road again. Camping wild out in Russia, phenomenal place, but the mosquitoes are the size of Spitfires. Honestly, they eat you alive over there. I was riding down the road and I met this chap. He was riding along, saw my number plate, speaks really good English. I said, oh, where you going? What you doing? So I told him, oh, where you heading tonight? Said, you know, find a field, put the tent up. Said, no, I'm going to a bike festival. You've got to come. Okay, why not? You know, by that point in the trip, you just roll with it. Whatever opportunities come your way, because you never know where it's going to take you. So I did. I followed him for about, thinking it was down the road. About 3 hours later, I'm in the forests in Russia. I'm starting to hear banjos, thinking I was the main course. We go up this track, and about 200 denim and leather-clad, pissed-up Russian bikers came hurtling towards me. It's going to be Mauritania again. And they were great. Literally, thrust bottles of vodka into my hand, started slapping me on the back. Oh, you're the mad Scotsman on the GSXR. That was it. Turns out, he is undercover drugs. But they knew that, and these guys, they're all Spetsnaz, Russian Special Forces. They've got their own motorcycle club in Novosibirsk, and this was their annual bike festival. So I ended up getting pissed for Russian Special Forces in the hotel. So we had a great time, really good night, vodka was flowing. So eventually, I managed to get to Vladivostok. What a party town Vladivostok is, honestly, oh my god. If you're a teetotal and you don't touch booze, I wouldn't bother with Russia. But my God, what a place. If you go in there, you will meet Uri and probably Svetlana. They handle all the shipping in and out of Vladivostok, Magadan, that sort of stuff. They know their stuff. Literally, contact them via email. Everything's on the hub, Horizons Unlimited. All the details are there. They sort it all out for you. So they arranged for the shipping of me and the bike. You literally just, it's a roll-on, roll-off ferry to South Korea. My dad was living there at that point with work, so met him for a week and then rode around South Korea. Fantastic place for the bike, it really is. And then from there I got the ferry to Japan. Japan again, what a place, stunning, great biking community over there, very, very strong if you get the opportunity to go. So I'll get to Japan, Mount Fuji in the background. These expat biking groups got in touch and said, oh look, we're having our annual family barbecue, come and meet us. Okay, again, booze was quite heavy there. Next morning we go for a ride because I'm heading to Motegi to the circuit. We'll take you to the mountain passes. So we get there, they start filming me, and obviously you've got to play up a little bit to the camera. I'm thinking, I've got to get my knee down on a jigsaw in Japan, it's got to happen. What I hadn't realised was that I buckled both my wheels crossing Russia. So as I'm coming up to a bend, I tried to trail brake and lock the front and smash straight into a barrier. That was bad. Smashed the whole front of the bike up. They said, don't worry, we'll phone our mate. And they called this chap, Pete. He's an Aussie guy, lived up in Japan for about 15 years. He turned up in his truck, never met me before, picked me in the bike up, took me home to his house, where his wife was standing there a little bit confused as I walked in. I ended up living with him for 3 weeks whilst we repaired the Gixxer. Now, if you're going to crash a Suzuki GSX-R, Japan's not a bad country to crash in. But not when it's their 2 weeks public holiday. So, I've sat there thinking, oh God, I can't get parts. At one stage, I was going to have to get parts from the UK sent to Japan for a Suzuki. But we got it sorted in the end. And eventually, I got back on the road, did all Japan, headed right up to the north, and back to Tokyo. From Tokyo, I flew the bike to Bangkok in Thailand. From there, I had to get to the south Thailand because my missus was coming over. Funnily enough, she wanted to meet me in Thailand, I don't know why. So we had like a week together there, and then I crossed into Malaysia because I wanted to go to Sepang for the MotoGP for my birthday. So I did that, turned up there, got that done. Was contacted by a tour company, said come with us, we'll show you a bit of Malaysia. Did that, great place to hit the road. Then I crossed back into Thailand, didn't get my passport stamped. Now that's important, I'll tell you about that in a second. Headed right up north, that's the bridge over the River Kwai. Then I tried to get into Myanmar, Burma, funnily enough couldn't. And then I tried to leave to go to Laos, right at the very top of Thailand, crossing to Laos. That's the border checkpoint, that's customs right there. And then the actual border point is there, you get on a little ferry that takes you across the river. So they're looking through my passport and there's no stamp into Thailand. So I tried to explain to them, I tried to get the passport stamped, but no one was there. It was lunchtime. They just said, you're flying, like Westerner. It's fine, go, you okay. I should have waited, I should have been more persistent, but I didn't. I just thought, okay, I'll go. Went in. So when I tried to leave, what I didn't know was that this is the major heroin run route. It's where they import all the heroin across into Laos and into Thailand and stuff like that. So there's me, this geezer, with no passport legally into the country, trying to leave across a river on the back of a boat with a motorbike. They were a little bit suspicious. You have to wait there for a couple of hours. 2 hours later, this general turned up on the back of a moped. Looked like someone out of a Kenny Everett sketch, with a massive shoulder pads and loads of medals. Immaculate he was, in a 40-degree heat, 90% humidity. He turned up. And he said, you're going to have to go to prison while we investigate this. Me in a Thai prison, I thought, no, that ain't happening. So I played my trump. And that was, my trump card was a picture of me standing on number 10 Downing Street in full uniform with a great big semi-automatic machine gun. I thought, that's me, that's what I do, I'm not running drugs. And he basically just looked, after threatening to put me in prison, he looked at it and he said, oh, you're a colleague? Oh, okay. Got a bit of scrap paper out of the printer. He said, can you just write a little letter saying you're really sorry, and that'll be 500 baht. 500 baht's about 20 quid. It seems to be the amount to get you out of anything. 500 baht just sorts everything. So I paid it. Straight onto that thing there, a little launch, and then that is pushed straight across the river, like that, and you're into Laos. What a beautiful, stunning country Laos is. Hopefully it's still like that, but it might not be untouched anymore. But at the time, there's no McDonald's or anything like that. It was just, as you'd imagine, that place to be. Beautiful. So in Laos, believe it or not, they are fantastic roads. Great biking roads. It's a whole lot of fun. Unfortunately, they're not all finished, a bit like Russia. So some are like that, and a few are like that. Can you imagine about 120 miles of that on a sports bike? It took me a little while, but we got through it. The Gixxer did it. I wasn't Dakar rallying it, with feet down and just paddling my way along, but I did it. She did it, no problem. Turns out to be one of the most memorable parts of the trip, to be honest with you. Then I had to head all the way back through Thailand, down through Malaysia, and then that's the famous onion boat you get across into Sumatra, northern Indonesia. And that chap there is Mr. Lee, quite elusive, but when you get hold of him, he'll sort everything out for you. Shipped it across into Indonesia, and then Indonesia, I rode all the way down. Again, the locals were fantastic there, they really were friendly people. Very warm, very welcoming. It was the rainy season, so there's a few issues with that, but we got through. Eventually, we get to Bali. That's a Bali Christmas tree. There's a heavy Australian influence in Bali, and they like the beer. So what was going to be a 2-day stop ended up being about a week. But yeah, had a good time in Bali. Then from there, I did the old island hopping on all the ferries that you read about. Well worth doing. The views are spectacular. Straight down to West Timor. From West Timor, rode into East Timor. No problems whatsoever. Didn't feel unsafe in the slightest. Everyone's really friendly. Not an issue. Again, don't believe what you hear and all the hype. It's a great place. Get to Dili. From Dili you have to ship across to Australia, but in order to get into Australia, the bike has to be forensically clean. I mean forensic. The stories of people when they get to Australia at quarantine, the guards are taking bolts out the bike to check the thread of the bolts. They can be that anal about stuff. So I'm not one for washing bikes, but I ended up spending about 3 days washing this thing. Crossed into Australia, and I was the last bike to get checked on Christmas Eve. And the guy took one look at the bike and he said, "I'll not be too bad with this. It's not like you've been riding it through rivers and shit." "Oh, no, not at all. I just posted on YouTube a clip of me riding that through rivers and shit." So getting to Australia, that's Christmas Day, 2013. Head south all the way down, then I head right across to the east coast, all the way down the east coast to Brisbane, from there right back through the bush, eventually to Adelaide, then right along the south, work my way all the way back to Sydney. Had to get a picture of that. So eventually I arrived in Sydney, met up with this chap, Andrew Edwards. Met Andrew Edwards in the middle of Russia at a place called Irkutsk, right near Lake Baikal. We got in touch on Horizons Unlimited. He literally put a post up saying, "I'm in the middle of Russia, is anyone around, fancy a beer?" I thought, that's the man for me. So we got in touch, and again, what was going to be a meet up in the afternoon turned into about 5 days. So good time. He said, "When you get to Australia, look me up, got to come and stay." So I did, and I stayed with him and his family for about 5 days, 6 days while we organised the shipping. And that's the bike literally on its way to the airport to get flown to Chile. By the time I had to miss out New Zealand, sorry, because I was just running short on time and money by that point, speaking of which, we were all right. So I flew the bike straight across to Chile. Chile, stunningly beautiful place. Again, really friendly locals. You've got to go to these places and experience the warmth, the total strangers before you believe it. It's unreal. I hit the Pan American Highway because I just wanted to get to the States by that point. I was just focusing, get me to the States. I want shit TV and crap food. That's what I was after. So I hit the Pan American, total waste. I look back now and think, you idiot. All those opportunities that I missed. But I did the odd little tourist thing all the way up. That's Ana the Desert in the Atacama Desert. Again, if you ever get the opportunity in life, camp in the desert at least once in your life. It is phenomenal. And there, down in Peru, you see, you've ever seen that time-lapse footage of the Milky Way galaxy? You see it clear as day. It's down there. There's no light pollution at all. Phenomenal. Ran out of fuel for the first time in the Atacama Desert, the driest place on earth. And I ran out of fuel there. But local stopped and helped. So eventually across into Ecuador straight into Colombia, no problems at all. Really friendly, really safe. The police were fantastic, the army were fantastic, no issues whatsoever there. Don't believe the hype. That's in Medellin, apparently the most dangerous city in the world. Not a problem. No problems at all. That is shipping it straight to Panama, across the Darien Gap. Costs about $650. And if you do the old private yachts that where they can put your bike on a yacht and you do like a 5-day crossing, sort of under the table way, that costs you roughly the same. So I thought $650, just bang it on a plane and it flies with me. Straight across into Panama. From Panama, headed straight north into Costa Rica. Again, I was going to cross Costa Rica in a day because it's only like 500 miles, something like that. Stopped for some fuel and met this Yank chap who saw the number plate, saw the bike. Turns out he used to race Suzukis in the 80s. So he's like, what are you doing? What's this all about? Told him all about the trip. He said, right, you've got to come and stay with me tonight. Be my guest. So I live right up in the mountains. Told me the way. It's up this dirt track right up in the mountains. So by that point in the trip, as I said, you just roll with it. You go with whatever comes your way. So I did. He said he had to go into the city, do a bit of business. I'll meet you back at the house. So I went up this dirt track, and it was about a mile and a half of up this mountain, literally up a mountain at the top of the mountain. And I'm expecting a shack when I get up to the top. And this guy on a quad bike came down. Turns out it's his gardener. He said, "Oh yeah, Senor, whatever his face is, Dicker, that was his name. Don Dicker, that's his real name. Honestly, that's his name." He said, "Oh yeah, he's told me to come up with me." So he took me up. I thought, oh my God, wow, that's not his house. That's the pool house. His house was back here. He said, "That's where you're living, that's yours. Help yourself in the fridge, just beer." Oh, happy days. So what was going to be one night turned into about 4. Costa Rica, my God, what a place. It is a party town, that place. Right on the edge of the jungle, but they like to party. The Rolling Stones band and all that were there when I was there, just jamming in a bar. It's phenomenal. What a place. But anyway, I dragged myself out of Costa Rica, right through Central America, no problems whatsoever. Nice as pie, really friendly, borders were no issue, don't worry about it, just go. Get to Mexico, again, one of the most dangerous cities in the world, no problem at all, everyone was very warm, very welcoming. A couple of journalists from Motociclismo, which is a big bike magazine over there, they'd heard all about the trip, got in touch and said, well, can we interview you? Of course, no problem at all. So I met them, they showed me all around Mexico City. They'd got in touch with Suzuki Mexico. Suzuki UK, Suzuki Global weren't interested in the slightest in the trip. Didn't get as much as an oil filter off them. Weren't interested. I met their PR guy at Hub before I went, and I've been badgering them for about 3 years. Saying, I'm doing this trip. I've got the bike, but any chance of just tweeting a bit, Facebooking a bit for me, get the word out there. Didn't do anything. So I went up to see him. Said, well, listen, I'm Bruce, I'm TeapotOne, I'm the guy that's been annoying you. Just to let you know, here's the bike. I'm going. I leave in 2 months, 3 months. And he laughed in my face. I'll never forget it. He laughed in my face and he said, you won't do it because the bike won't do it, but more importantly, you won't do it. Anyone that knows me, from then on, I'm fucking doing it. Even if I have to carry this bike on my back, that bike is getting around the world. So when I got home, I was quite happy to send him a wee picture of the bike. Back when it finished. But anyway, Suzuki Mexico, brilliant. They serviced the bike for me. They even gave the factory staff the morning off to ride with me north out of Mexico City. We had a bit of break. Great place. Actually, I went back and I met this chap here. I met him on our honeymoon. We went to Mexico and we stayed in Mexico City for a couple of nights. He came out, met us, took us home, met his family. Great folk, really, really friendly. So from there, I was back into the States, into Texas, straight across to LA, met a couple of people there. And then all the way back, right across the States again. So yeah, you've got to do Route 66, haven't you? It has to be done. Grand Canyon, phenomenal place. This one I'm proud of. Colin Edwards sent me a tweet and said, oh, I've seen your trip, you've got to stop by the ranch. So I did, and he was there. I ended up spending the night with Colin Edwards on the piss. It was his birthday, great time. I did find a way. Eventually, Barbara Motorsports Museum, fantastic place in Georgia. Tail of the Dragon, that is what a road, phenomenal. Again, worked my way all the way down to Key West. You can't go any further south then, so from there it was north, all the way back up to New York. Met my missus in New York. We got engaged. Then we headed up to Boston. From Boston, I headed across to Chicago, then north into Canada. I was really on a mission by this point. I was battering my way through. It's a shame, but I really was battering through because I had to get to the Isle of Man for the TT by a set date. So the aim was to get right up to Dead Horse, right at the top. I wasn't sure if I was going to make it. I had to do something like 500 odd miles a day to get there and back in time. As it was minus 38, I think, at one stage, crossing the prairies in Canada. I was doing about 100 miles a day. It was just ridiculous. So I got as far as, started the Alaskan Highway. I got as far as the Yukon and literally had to turn around and start heading south again. So all the way down through Vancouver, down to Seattle, and then from there, I just battered my way right across the top of the States, Mount Rushmore, obviously, Niagara, then eventually to New York. And from New York, shipped the bike. I was supposed to meet it in Dublin, but it turned out being easier to ship it to Manchester, and then they drive it in a van. Don't know why, but customs, apparently it's easier to do it that way. So that's what they did. I met him in Dublin, when in Rome, that has to be done. Great pint of Guinness. Went all the way up through Ireland, and then Ballymoney. If you're ever on a sports bike or you're a biker, you've got to go to Joey Dunlop's bar in Ballymoney. Turned up there to go and have fresh orange lemonade, honest, and chatting away to the lady behind the bar. She saw the state of me, fat lad, covered in dubs, and that bike was all battered outside. She asked all about what I was doing. So I told her. She was gobsmacked. She got on the phone, and literally within about 10 minutes, the whole town was there. All these people were coming up buying me booze. A great time. Turns out that lady is Linda, Joey Dunlop's wife. So yeah, we had a great time. From there, I had to ship across to Isle of Man. Did the TT. Phenomenal. If you've never done it, go at least once in your life. Great time. And then from there, ferry straight to Ireland. And I met up with a whole load of folk that have been following on social media. And we rode from there. They rode with me the last leg all the way back. So I finished where I started at the Cenotaph. 74,000 miles, 54 countries, and 442 days later. That was the trip. Done. Lessons learned. If you haven't picked it up yet, the warmth and generosity of a total strangers is humbling. It's a humbling thing when you experience it. You hear about it at these events, you know, everyone that's done it speaks about it. but it really is true. And until you go and experience it, it changes you. Because I was quite a bitter, twisted bloke before I went. Everybody was a bastard, basically, you know. I came back, and you're very much open to everybody, really. You know, just you take folk at face value, really, and you just get on with it. And now, if I often think to myself, if a total random stranger was to approach me and needed help before I went, would I have given them help? Maybe, but would I go to the extent I would go now? Probably not before. Now you will, because I've been on that side of the fence, you know, when you're on your arse and you just need help from people. So that's changed me, definitely. And a big thing, this one. Oh, that was all good. Never mind. Yeah, basically, that's all the people around the world that helped me out along the way. In fact, there was loads more, but I couldn't think of them. It's just phenomenal. So to me, what means most in life now, are my friends and family, basically. And that's us on the farm on the wedding day. I nearly forgot, which is a week today. I've got to remember. Yeah. So you know the words that my mum said to me that kicked it all off. Live your life. That's what I try and do now. So you know, every day you give it your all, don't you? That's it. If we have some questions and hopefully some answers. Anyone got any questions? You've got to have questions. Come on. No.
Was it harder planning for the trip and thinking about doing it than actually doing it?
Do you know, if I was going again, if I could afford to do it, go again, I would literally have a credit card, a couple of credit cards in my pocket, my passports, and I'd just hit the road. I would have a couple of pairs of pants, some t-shirts and a rucksack, and I'd go. All that planning that I did I need to do it? No. The planning for me is oh God, you know, geez, it's almost putting it off. Because when the day comes that you actually leave, that's the hard day. It's to actually pull yourself away and make the break and go. Planning wise, you don't need to do all that really. Everything you can do on the way, unless you're going straight to Russia, in which case you've got to get your visa before you go. Otherwise, get it on the way. You'll always find a way.
So when you had the accident in Japan, did you injure yourself?
No, I was a little bit battered and bruised, but not like this. I had an argument with a polo a couple of weeks ago. This is why I'm like this. No, Japan, no, I was all right. I just sort of bounced and got back up. Bloody embarrassed, to be perfectly honest with you. So, yeah. But no, I didn't injure. I crashed there. As soon as the bike was fixed, I met up with an Italian dude that was travelling around the world, and we went for a ride through Japan. The day I got the bike back on the road, went through a tunnel, and he crashed on some oil and slid into me and took me off the bike. That was the day the bike was back on the road. But thankfully it wasn't badly damaged. And then I snapped a foot peg in as I crossed into Texas. But that was about it really. And luckily I didn't injure myself on any of them.
So how did you know where you wanted to go? What sort of, in terms of planning, you might know you want to go from one country to another, but how do you know twisty roads, fast roads, you want to get from A to B quickly?
What I did, I bought a big wall map, a big massive wall map, and I whacked it up on my living room wall. And I knew I was going to start at the cenotaph. I knew I wanted to go to all the MotoGP circuits to try and blag a lap if I could. I used the internet to research where all the good roads are, you know, the iconic roads that you want to try and do. So I plotted them on this map, just a general idea. I had a vague idea as to what cities I had to get to do shipping points, just through research online. So I plotted them, and then I literally took a bit of string and tied that round the one that was in the cenotaph, and then I just started looping it around all these pins. This map, this route eventually appeared to me. You know, you don't stick to it religiously, because sometimes you can, but it'll give me a good idea as to where I wanted to go.
You get opportunities in life to take you to other places.
Exactly, yeah. If you're doing a trip like that, use social media, because you know, it's not essential, but it literally opens the world up to you. People get in touch with you from all over the world that you've never met before. Say, I live in Estonia. You've got to come and meet me here, and I'll show you these roads and that road. So you go there, and while you're there, you meet other people, and they go, I've got family in Australia. I've got to go meet them. You just take people up on these offers where you'd normally just go, that's really kind, thanks very much. Actually do it, and it just opens the trip up to you.
Different fuel strategy, you just fill up whenever you could.
Yeah, honestly, you end up not worrying about fuel, to be perfectly honest with you. I just kind of thought, as long as there's vehicles on the road, there's always mopeds. Wherever you go, you'll always see mopeds. And they need fuel. So if it got to the stage where I was in the arsehole of nowhere and I was running low on fuel, wait for a moped, flag them down and just say, point at the tank, where can I get gasoline? At one stage in Peru, I think it was, I was up a mountain, I ended up in this village, and I got taken to a woman's house, and she took me into a front room. She had big, massive, like water ducts, 3 or 4 of these water ducts. She took the lid off with a ladle, a pair of tights over like a bottle, and she started scooping fuel. It was in a front room. She started scooping fuel out into that. There you go, that shows. Like $10, $20, how much fuel. It's as simple as that. There's always fuel, apart from when you're in the Atacama Desert.
So we see you wearing one piece of that. Did you wear them all the way?
Yeah, two piece. You know, no point being idiotic, is there? You've got to be practical. You know, I was on a sports bike, so I've got to wear leathers, and yeah, I wore them all the way around. And I went through 2 sets. The first set to Australia, they fell apart. In fact, no, sorry, Houston. I got to Houston and they fell apart. So I've still got them, and then I've got the other set that I took. They're not allowed in the house.
It's bloody hot when you're in places like Thailand.
Yeah. I nearly, to be honest with you, Mauritania was bad because I was in 48, 49 degree heat in a leather suit, and I nearly died in the desert. It's only because of that South African guy that I'm here, because I was lying at the side of the road thinking that's me done, and he just turned up, booted me in the arse, and 60-odd-year-old geezer picked me up and put me on the bike, told me to get my fat ass moving. You know, he kept me going, he saved me. But yeah, when you get to places like Japan, Thailand, where it's 90, 100% humidity, leathers are not a fun place. Nah. I mean, I rode a jigsaw around the world. Common sense doesn't come into it. Yes, ma'am.
Any word from Suzuki since you've been back? Nothing.
I think, I don't know, Richie, you might know, but I don't think Luke's there anymore, is he? Plummer, is he? He's still there, is he? Never heard from him. Never heard. Never got a single bit of feedback from him.
I hope you gave them plenty when you got back.
I didn't really. I emailed him the picture and that was that. It's done, isn't it? What's the point?
Yeah.
Still love Suzuki. Probably end up test riding that new jigsaw. And, I don't know, we'll see what happens. Anyone else? DVD, God. I've been back since 2014 and I still haven't done it. Oh God, I've got to sit down and do it. Now I've done this, I've got the time. To be honest, I didn't have the time before really. I was just so busy at work, and it's such a daunting task. And there's a bit of it as well in that once I've done the DVD, the trip's finished. I've done the book, and the DVD's the last thing. As soon as that's done, that's the trip finished, isn't it? But I will do it. I'm trying to get it done for this Christmas. Herman, no. I spoke. Herman was believe it or not, I ended up getting a GS. Sorry. Amazing machine. But anyway, Herman was the name of my GS, Herman the German. And I was on him when I had this accident. And I've heard from the guy that examined it, the insurance guy, he said it's a write-off. So I haven't heard officially, but yeah, looks like that's the end of that. I might be going to KTM and having a look at it.
Do you think you'll ever do another trip like that again?
Another round the world one? Probably not another round the world, to be honest. I couldn't afford it. I'm still paying for that one now, to be honest. I don't know, that was my dream, that was my life dream, that trip. You put everything into it, and I've done it, so, sorry. I would like to go back and do Africa, because that's eating away at me. I can't let that beat me. I'd like to go and do the Middle East, because again, people that you speak to that have been there and done it, what I found, people were so warm and welcoming, so everyone says that about over there, believe it or not. So I'd love to go and do that, and I want to go and finish the Americas. I didn't get to Ushuaia, I didn't get to Dead Horse, so I'd love to go back. But spend a bit of time really, rather than just put my head down and my arse up and panning through it. So one day, yeah, money permitted. Anyone else?
Just put a figure on the trip you did to say if someone wanted to do it, what figure would you put on it?
I can tell you exactly how much it cost me, and you'll be a bit gobsmacked, but that trip cost me 55 grand. But then I was away for a year and a half. I didn't camp all the time. About a third of the time I camped, a third of the time I stayed with people, a third of the time I was in hostels, B&Bs and stuff. I've shipped by air most of the time for time constraints generally, and I couldn't be arsed with all the backhanders that you have to do at all the ports, the shipping ports. Do it through the air, it's just, it's all done. An agent reaches, sorts it all out, done. So there was no grief with that. What else added to the cost? That 55 grand is the cost of the bike, the cost of the car mate, all the kit that I took, covering a bit of my mortgage while I was away. I had maintenance for my son that I had to pay while I was away, so all that's encompassed in it. You can do it on, there's people have done it on under 10 grand. So if you want to do it on a real budget, you can.
Were you working at the time?
Yeah, yeah.
They released you from work.
Yeah, in the old bill, you can take, well, you could take up to 5 years as a career break, at which point they would guarantee there was a job for you when you came back. You might not be in a specific department. I work in diplomatic protection, so they couldn't guarantee I'd go back there, but they said, chances are there'll be a job for you. And as it was, the job bankrupt anyway, so that was 2 years they didn't need to pay me, so they were perfectly happy for me to go. But I was very fortunate like that. When I came home, I was on my arse. I had nothing by the time I'd come home. I was begging and borrowing money off my dad and off my missus and stuff. So it was good to get back to work. No, you didn't, honestly. No money in the world's worth putting up with crap I've got to put up with. Anyway. Anyone else? This one. Yeah, I had dengue fever. I caught dengue fever at one stage. I think that's on the YouTube videos. It came out both ends at one stage when I was on the bike. That wasn't pleasant. It was quite a low day, that was. Yeah, I got dengue fever. I got eaten alive by mosquitoes and everything. Animals, they seem to love my blood. So yeah, I got sort of feasted on and picked up a few things. And the heat gets you as well. Oh, and I developed a heart condition. I forgot about that. I developed a heart condition on the road. I don't know how, don't know why, and I didn't know at the time. It's only when I got back I found out I had a dodgy heart. But, it could have happened when I was home. I don't know. I just felt knackered all the time.
Was that the lowest point of the trip?
Coming, there were two really low points. Mauritania, when I decided to come home, and we were actually covering this next and the next thing that's coming after me. Actually getting home after your trip, that's a low point, because you've lived your dream. Now what? Do you know what I mean? What do you do next? And nobody ever speaks about that. That is hard. That's probably the hardest thing, is dealing with what you do next, what happens. So that's a difficult one. Anyone else? This one.
Key selection. Decide what you take to like the bare minimum. Most of you guys do look like do.
Yeah.
Is there something you have to take, or you just think it's a personal choice?
It was just sort of personal choice at the time. What do I need? I have to have this. When I first left, I had a farcical amount of kit. If I showed you the picture of me when I left the first time, the back of the bike was overflowing. I could hardly steer the bloody thing. It was up like this. I ditched most of that. Halfway across Russia, I literally ditched over half of my kit. Ditched it at the side of the road. I ended up doing it with two pairs of boxer shorts, 2 pairs of socks, 3 or 4 t-shirts. These, trousers like this that zipped into shorts, a pair of flip-flops, and that was it. That was my kit. And then I had a couple of spanners and sockets. Don't really know why I took them, to be honest with you, because I know nothing mechanically. Honestly, I know where you put fuel, I know you push that button and it makes a noise, happy days, off you go. Apart from that, no idea. So I had a couple of spanners with me just so I didn't look a twat. Mobile phone, that's probably the thing I would take with me. That and a passport.
And hands to the gods, really. You really are not lucky because if you coverage to meet people, people that are willing to help. Because I guess there's some people that bump it running from one day to the next. And
yeah, I mean, I never really found myself where I thought, oh shit, there is nobody here, because if you sat around and waited for maybe an hour, a moped would appear. If you're in the desert, someone appeared. Like, where have you come from? These people just be walking through the desert. They'll just be there. You stop, people find you. Maybe I was lucky, I don't know, but it just all seemed to work out for me, to be honest with you. Yes, ma'am. No, the police in Mauritania, that was about it, really. They were working with local gangs, so they would set you up so that you would get done by the gangs, basically. But everywhere else, no. I had a slight issue up in Laos, where I was camping. I tried to camp at the side of that mud track. Well, I was right up in the mountains in the middle of nowhere, and it was getting dark, so I pitched my tent here. And as I put the tent up, a couple of lights appeared on the horizon, and these guys came towards me all with guns. So, oh, bloody hell, here we go again. But they kept shouting about a passport or something, and I thought, well, I'm not giving my passport to a bunch of geezers in the mountains in Louth. So no, so I just packed my bike up, got on the bike and started going down this track, and they all chased me. And as I came into this little, down the bottom of the hill, there was a sort of crossroads of this track, and I could see the huts in the moonlight. All these lights appeared, 30 odd lights. And as I got there, they put a big chain up across the road, and everyone had a rifle on them. So I thought, oh, here we go. But as it turned out, that road was another drug running route, and the people that were out were like the village security. So they were out just doing recce's to make sure the village was safe. They didn't know who I was. And all they were trying to say was, it's very dangerous to be out here at night. Come to our village and stay in the village. So I ended up sleeping with outside this barn with the pigs, all these pot-bellied pigs. And it was the next day that I had the top and bottom issue. Because I drank water out of the river. Yeah, honestly, safety-wise, you have a bit of common sense about it. Out in the country, you tend to be fine. Cities just have a little bit of a clobber about you, you know. Like if a place looks shitty, just don't go there. Especially South America, you know, places like Brazil. There's a couple of horrific stories of late. A couple of bikers got lost in sat nav and ended up in a favela. Well, yeah, they didn't come out. So just have to use a little bit of common sense. Anyone else?
Just to keep it flowing, so you just mentioned about camping, so would you do it different next time, i.e. like if you stopped and asked someone who's official, i.e. someone with
Yeah.
so someone who's standing there with a microphone, so is there somewhere I could put myself?
No, I probably wouldn't, to be honest. It depends what you want. Some days you just want to be by yourself, you know.
Oh, absolutely. And hardly ever, if you ask someone where you can put your tent up, hardly ever do they show you where you can put your tent up. They usually do say,
come on with us.
my house.
Yeah.
That's right.
Uh-huh.
But so as not to be how you were, i.e. scared of these lights, which I would have been under the same situation. Sort of feel that people know you're there. And as soon as people know what you are, who you are, you know the threat.
Yeah. Yeah, they just open up to you totally. You know, 100%. Once, as you said, once they establish, you know, when you look at somebody to begin with, you're thinking, you know, what are you like? Are you decent? Are you a threat to me, or are you not? It's human nature, isn't it? They're no different. And as soon as they figure out, now you're no threat, then, you know, do you need help? Yeah, no problem. We'll help you out. And you tend to find the more remote you go, the less people have, the more hospitable they are. Yeah, totally. Another story in Russia, I was filling up with fuel, a guy was there, and you know, he saw my number plate, didn't speak English, but kept saying, oh, Slovak, because I had SCO and the Scottish flag on my number plate. I was like, no, Scotland, Scotia. And I had a map on the back of my helmet. Pointed at that and showed him what I was doing, and then he does, you know, this. Sleep, where do you sleep? So I pointed at my tent. He was like, you know, no, you, like this. So he got in his car, and I just followed him. I'm assuming he meant for me to follow him. So I followed him, and we ended up in the forest, and I literally turned up at this wooden shack, you know, like a shed with the old chimney and the smoke coming out of it. We went in, and his missus is there, standing at the stove, looking a little bit confused. She turns around, and I'm stood there, and they spoke in Russian. Next thing you know, she's giving me a bowl of borscht, and the vodka comes out, and that was it. Spent the night chatting with these people. When I don't speak Russian, they don't speak English, but vodka helps your Russian, definitely. And, yeah, things like that just happen, you know. Just go with it. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Particularly in Russia as well, you know, is that they will take offence if you don't accept their hospitality. Definitely. Yeah, so
that's right, official.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. So just go with it. No, don't worry about it. No problems. No worries. Cheers, man. Anyone else? Yes, Mark. Sorry? Do you know, I haven't, and now I've come here, I'm thinking, you idiot, why aren't you? But I just haven't, to be honest. I've got 2 trips that I have to edit, and then a couple other things that I've got to edit. So in my head, I'm thinking, I've got weeks of editing to do already, but I should have logged this. Are you doing anything, Matt? So you're filming?
Just filming, yeah.
All right, hello. I think the Overland folk themselves, they're going to do a little video from the weekend, so it will get covered. If I'm here next year, I'll vlog it definitely. So yeah, TeapotOne vids. Remember, subscribe. It's my baby. I'd always ridden sports bikes. So when I decided I was going to do it, Nick Sanders did it on the R1. Jack, ended up getting pissed with Jack at a Horizons Unlimited meet, and obviously he's done amazing stuff on the R1. Jack Lucasen. Never heard of him. YouTube. What? Just mental. Likes are there. So they'd done it, and I just thought, well, if you can do it, I can do it. So I'll take my jigsaw, thanks. Plus, everyone was doing it on a GS. Every man and his dog. I know now why, because I ride one. But I just thought, well, I want to be a bit different, so I'll do it on that. I'm still chuffed. You know, if I had time over again, I'd still take the jigsaw. Phenomenal bike. No, the off-road bits are hard. You know, there's no getting away from that. They're hard, it's uncomfortable, it's slow. But when you get onto good roads, oh my God, it's just you're flying around Laos and Australia and Japan on these amazing roads, and you're on a sports bike having a whale of a time. What's not to like?
Did you get the speeding?
Yeah, I got done in Austria, but I had some items with me that showed who I was, and I could get out of that one. Then I got done in Portugal. I got a round of applause. Got done for 160 in Portugal on this toll road. But a guy beat me. A guy in an M5 beat me. The old bill went, yeah, you don't win today. He wins. That was €200 fine for that, which you're going to pay because over here you go to jail. So yeah, that was it. And then I got a bit of a telling off by a state trooper in the States, but he was good as gold. Yeah, that was it.
You're in the right job.
It helped. That definitely helped. In Austria, that helped massively. But then over here, I got done 79. Lincolnshire Old Bill did me for 79 and 70. Oh, great. Thanks very much.
Wait till he comes in your area.
Yeah. But apart from that, it was all right. Norway, they're very hot on speeding. Australia, oh my God, they've got hard on for speeding in Australia. Yeah, watch that. In fact, I don't think I can go back to Australia because I never paid the fine. So. I'll give that a body swerve for a while.
Mark man.
Yeah, I think so. Anyone else? No? Well, I hope you all enjoyed it. And if you've got any questions, I'm here for another couple of hours and then I'll have to shoot. But bike's over there if you want to go and have a look at the bike. There's a book. The whole series is on YouTube, free to view, so go and have a look at that. And at some point, I promise I'll get the DVD. All right?